here as I get my computer working, and it is being recorded, and I'll edit these and also send these videos out to everybody so they can have a record of what actually happened. So.
Okay, so my 10 seconds before the 6 minutes starts. I was told I wish Sam could hear this. You're better to be 5 minutes early than 1 minute late, but I'm going to add to that, unless you have beer, and then it's fine. So, thanks, Sam. I'm Andy Goff, Reverie Coffee Roasters, and I spoke with the group at 1 Million Cups and kind of profiled my business, and I'm not going to go through that whole entire thing again. I'm interested in telling you a little bit about my experience so far with DTV and what I expect to get out of it and earn from that, and maybe areas where people can help me. And I'm going to point on one specific task or one thing that I'm interested in growing my business, and maybe if we do this again, I'll talk about another one and another after that. So we roast premium coffee, and it's more of a service. This is what I was told by my mentors I've never served. I've always focused on my business as being more of a product-driven business, and how we differentiate ourselves is from how that product tastes or how it appears. And what I've learned is that we're very much so in the service industry. A good example was a friend of ours enjoyed a cup of coffee and could not get the pastry that he wanted because there was nothing there, and the person came to them when they were prepared, baked fresh, said, "What would you like? I'll get it for you," and the experience was complete, and it was a wonderful experience. And that is a service, and I expect that that's what you bring to your customers at the wholesale level. This is what you're bringing out into an office or to a cafe. You become that person that not only is delightful and fun to work with, but is there really as your partner in your business. And so that's exactly how we view what we do. We just never really thought of it that way. And the other side of it is I've been considering how my competitors view their business, and I would always peg them as they are a service provider, and we are a really good part of that. And it turns out coffee is coffee. I mean, coffee can taste better. The coffee is still coffee at the end of the day. And that delightful service that our competitors provide is really what we're trying to get the attention of our customers. And so I'm leading into one of the areas that we really want to grow our business is in wholesale coffee roasting specifically for office business, or I also throw in that category restaurants. Those are categories of service that have been sort of in our eyes plagued by the current providers that do the majority of the business. And I would call them the value operators, the businesses that are a value or an inexpensive office coffee solution, and or like the food service providers, the ones that are already delivering 95% of what you need. I'll just go ahead and throw this on, and it's a loss leader, but to get 100% of the wallet. And so they have kind of shaped the way our industry is, and it makes it really hard for us premium quality providers because our products cost more, and we don't have the service teams, we don't have the sales teams to provide 150 units to prepare the coffee in those places. But these other guys do. They've got different pricing structures and how they do business. So what I'm interested in is knowing how can I identify my market, look at my market from a, what are they willing to pay? What's their stress level before they break? What's their perception of their current service? Do they really enjoy that, or are they seeking a better product? But they can't seem to figure out how to buy it because it's not being offered to them. And then also, am I able to give them the product that I think they want and the one I hope they tell me they want? And then are they actually going to experience it the way that we want them to? At our shop, our cafe is a marketing center. I look at it as a marketing center. I have about 7,500 people that come through that place every single month. There's 7,500 transactions, swiped with credit cards, cash transactions. That is my opportunity to market to those people. Most everybody is going to a business or a work, and they can take that experience with them in a cup. Why can't we put that into their office with a machine, just like we did here with this office and other offices around town? I currently serve about 40 regular wholesale customers. If you're looking at numbers, and we're serving about 30,000 pounds of coffee a year, which if you've never looked at coffee production, it sounds like a lot. It's actually not that much. I strive to take my business to about a 200,000 pound a year over the next 3 to 5 years. And that's a really big stride, considering one of my mentor companies, the ones I look up to, has been doing this for over 10 years. They own 2 farms, and they're at 150,000 pounds. So we've got big shoes to fill, and hitting markets that they're not really tapping into is one way we can do that. And our big, by this group is, by the way, out of town. It's out of town. It's a Tulsa-based company. So with that said, in the last 2 minutes of my talk, I will point out some of the things that we're going to be doing in the short term at Reverie. Is we are planning to move our location to a larger facility to provide about 100 seats to serve coffee. And also we're adding food items, we're adding booze. And then we're also adding a bakery, a full-blown bakery with a total walk-in experience for people to come in off the street quickly, get in and out, and also bring great quality things to their shop, to their offices and homes. With that, we're also separating our roastery Currently, if you've been in our business, it's on our floor of our shop. It's part of the spectacle of what you see when you come in. We've done that really well. It's fun. However, if you're in a manufacturing facility, having an audience is not the best thing. So we're moving that to a secondary location, which is actually located right next door. So it's proximity to where we're at. It's still part of who we are. It's part of our DNA. You can still see it through the big giant windows, but it's going to be kind of like it is now off limits. So that's kind of the future, what's happening over the next 6 months. But what will happen in the next probably 10 weeks is spending a lot of time with these mentors and Jacob and John to really hone in on our business practice and look at the things that we've just not been able to really push into doing. I will say this, and looking at the other guys sitting here with us, I've never worked so hard for my business and felt so tired at the end of the night and then been more refreshed to wake up every morning to go do it again. And I think that this program has been a really good thing for me personally. I've gotten more work done in the last week than I've done in the last 2 years. And I think that's pretty exciting. And I want to say thanks to all the mentors and the people that have made this program possible. Without you guys, I mean, this program wouldn't exist. And we wouldn't do so good if we didn't have so many people, our stakeholders, holding us accountable with that. So I want to say thanks with 5 seconds ago. So can I entertain any questions from the crowd? First.
What's the problem? What's the problem we can solve for you?
What's the problem? The big problem that I have is, I'm supposed to, that's the last question. Wait, this is not 1 million cups. The big problem is that if you are going to supply coffee in a wholesale capacity to businesses, currently there's a couple problems. One is the expectation is that you sell me the product at whatever price it's worth, and then you automatically include all of the very expensive equipment that comes with it. And I would say restaurants and offices all just have that expectation. And that's the part we have to kind of fix or figure out a solution to. So the other problem with that would be is if that is part of the deal, then I can charge the right amount. And if they're willing to pay $4 to $6 more per pound for the product, I can probably give them those things. However, how much money do I need to have in capital to be able to buy enough equipment at the best price to have on hand in supply waiting so that when you call me and say, I want to buy your coffee service and I'm willing to pay $14 a pound for that product instead of $8 with the other provider, and can I have it installed tomorrow? And if we could figure out how many of those we have to sell to where the $5 or the 5 pounds a week that comes in on these tiny orders brings up enough revenue to cover the cost of that equipment. So I have to figure out what that balance is between what they're willing to spend and then how much do I actually have to have in inventory to be able to turn a profit. You know, how many customers I need to sell then at that point. So far I found it's actually really easy to sell an office as long as they buy into the value proposition, which is we provide a much better experience for our product than they're going to get with your typical office coffee solution. I mean, I said it that way, and I immediately got a phone call from one of our competitors. If you read the Business Journal article, and a competitor who I'm trying to compete against now is knocking on my door and wants to buy my product because he sees there's a difference between what they offer and what we do. So maybe that's part of the solution. But anyway,
I'll make one comment.
Please.
Because there's a lot more experience in the room, in my opinion. But I would suggest that all the subordinate things that you just mentioned about the amount of capital, the number of purchasers, the pricing point, are the second tier of questions you need to answer. It's the first tier question I suspect that you need to answer, which is, are we just selling coffee, or are we selling the equipment that goes with it as a part of the experience that I'm pushing? Once you answer that question, everything else flows from it.
explain what you mean by is the equipment part of that experience, meaning?
In other words, am I just selling coffee as a roastery?
Right.
Or am I doing business-to-business sales like some competitors that I know you have here in town, where they're selling me the coffee urns, the coffee maker, right. If there's a grinder involved,
yes.
Are there pods? What's the experience that you're selling me?
Right.
In an office environment versus a restaurant environment versus a quick service environment? What are you hitting at? Because there's a different equipment formula there, as you already hit on, for each one of those. And I think the quality of your product you got down pat. I'm not sure I understand what slice of this market you're hitting at. I'm a little cloudy on that. If you clear that up, I think all the other questions fall in line.
There's some really basic things that we want to have, that we expect or we understand are important for preparing coffee, and this gets into the science of making coffee. And there's just certain, like you can literally cut a catalog in half and say, none of this is going to work. And so it might cut out some of our competitors, or some of our opportunity. Good example, the single serve business, where you're using K-cups or pods, we're never going to fit into that category, and I have no desire to do that. It completely is, I would probably lose any and all credibility from the industry. It's not something that's actually recognized as a specialty product, and I can't offer it. So it has to first meet that standard, and that falls in the category of quality. So that's fine. With that said, the brewers and things that we recommend we use are all ones we've tested and used, we install and service, and they're way more expensive than the stuff that our competitors are selling. So I have to also figure out, is it, I mean, just doesn't make sense. You know, the $1,000 setup that typically costs in an office is $750 more than what they would have purchased if they outright purchased it. But the problem I find is that most of those people are buying a service, which is the guy in the nice, you know, clean shirt, well-mannered, takes the payment right then and there, has everything on the truck, decides what you need, transactions done and complete, simple and easy, he's friendly, and will always pick up the phone and call him. And that's the service they're buying, and it just happens to be providing coffee. That's for your office. So, anyways.
So to delve into that a little bit, so if I buy into that service and I have it delivered, and then I throw it into the equipment I already have, is it going to take away from their experience and their service?
There's a good chance of that. One of the advantages that we have, though, is that we consult to help make
Which
it right.
answers his question.
Probably. The thing is, if you change service and you're using the equipment leaves. You don't actually own that equipment, it's a lease, so then I have to replace it with something.
But you're saying the flavor of your coffee is specialized because of this high expensive ticket.
Without getting too deep into science, you're extracting flavor from coffee. Poor quality equipment can't do the job. You use a darker roasted, lower quality product, and it doesn't really matter what you run it in, it's going to taste almost the same every way, which is bad all the way around. I mean, I don't like to use terms bad and different. In this case, I typically mean bad. So if you have a higher quality product, it requires a little bit more technology to do, and you can't get that in a cheap product. So I got to figure out a way to make the people understand the value in that. In a perfect world, everybody would build into their project a cost of $1,000 or whatever it takes, or more if you have a grinder, to put that service in. And there are actually more business owners now considering that than ever before. And maybe that's the future of our business, is young millennials that are taking over mom and dad's company are coming in and saying, I can't handle this anymore. I know I have to buy the better product, and that's what I want. But then I also find out when they get down to the bottom line, that's like the fifth thing on the list that they're not going to get done in time for the project. I got one specific case that's happening right now. They want it really badly, but the windows are way more important, you know. And so I got to figure out how to, you know, I want to get into that business and provide them the same type of a service, but just a much, much higher value product. And one that my marketing centers, my business, my image, our brand, that people trust and like, gives them that feeling, you know, that this is what I like. A good example, a banker came to me and bought 9 lattes and brought those lattes into his bank. And he's a development person, so he wanted to make all the ladies happy and send them leads, okay? And then I said, why don't you do with the AirPods, like the AirPod we have over there? It's simpler, it's easier, and with that big brand on the front, when he walked in, they instantly got happy. They were way happier with black coffee than they were with 9 lattes, which arguably would be a better product. And it was cheaper for him too. And so it's like maybe putting that brand image into a business would be helpful. And that's part of the culture that we're trying to convey. Having it 1 million talks is one of those things that helps us. We definitely ingrain ourselves in community. People want to bring that into their office somewhere. And it's just one sliver of the pie of the things we have to do to make office environments more friendly and more happy. So.
Are restaurants the same? Do they require you to provide equipment also?
Almost in every scenario,
Almost
never
every
under one. And that's just the restaurant business. Food service providers will lose money on coffee service equipment to make sure that someone else doesn't get it, even if it's not a lawsuit. You pay $1 per serving for iced tea, for example. And the best product that we can make with iced tea, which is using a local provider, is going to be about $3 a batch. It's actually not a big deal. That's actually, when you think about 3 gallons of coffee, it's not that much more money. Great deal, but it's the $800 brewer that I have to install to make it work. And again, they're going to make $30 a month in sales. I just can't figure out how that's going to work, you know. So opportunities all over, but in restaurants, I don't think they're the best opportunity. They're great marketing centers, so they're a good place as long as they brand it correctly in there. You almost don't make any money on it, but you get hundreds of people seeing your name. Getting on menus is really a good thing for the business.
Have you done any research or study of the potential businesses that would be good for you, businesses that would not?
I've not seen any studies that specifically address that.
Because it sounds to me like you're talking about a product that's high-end, and sometimes a business would just want a cup of coffee, I don't care what it tastes like, it just so I can give it to someone.
Right. So my experience has been, and I have seen some research that was, I won't say it was slided in the direction of one thing or the other, but it was definitely coming from the coffee industry, trying to figure out the value, the ROI, an investor, a business owner can place on the value of a perceived specialty coffee program over the typical solution. This has been a few years. I actually wrote this in my first business plan. And the ROI was like 8 to 1. It was way higher than even, like they had study or had surveys that showed that people would rather have that service, like at 75% said they would rather have that over the annual Christmas party. Like things that have line item budgets allotted to. When I worked at Interest, Jay Smith, just because he was the accountant there at the time, he said, we spend X amount of dollars on coffee, and I know that if we brought your coffee in, which is dozens of offices, I mean, every office has one, which they're serving, by the way, Folgers provided by Prairie Fire. But if you're in the bank, if you ever notice, they have Prairie Fire on display. So they give the good stuff to the customers, and they give the bad stuff to the employees. The consumption rate they figured out would probably go 10 times. We figured out they're paying a penny per cup once they factored even the cost of the cup. It was a ridiculous and expensive amount, and he was worried about it doubling in cost. I'm like, oh man, it would triple to quadruple, maybe 10 times, because now everybody who would drink a large quantity. So then it's trying to figure out, what is the ROI on that? If you're really happy and you don't go down the street to Espresso Go-Go, one that was right down the street from me, how important is that to you? How do you place a value on that? And that's really hard to a banker, because they don't look at things like that. They're slow to get into that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I don't have a best case scenario. Our best profit center is in an espresso bar. They deal with high volumes, and they buy all their own equipment, which makes no sense to me. I can make $30,000 or $40,000 a year just off one restaurant or cafe, or like a high volume cafe. But the industry norm is to not buy their equipment for them, and that's slowly changing.
One last question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding correctly, your differentiator for this coffee is that it's a better coffee. And we're attempting to wedge that particular coffee into a space that's accustomed to shit coffee, excuse my language, right?
That's a term I use. Yeah.
So,
Try to get it out of my vocabulary.
So if I'm following that logic correctly, and we go down the rabbit hole of ROIs and things like that, I think we run into a dead end.
Oh yeah.
Because whenever you're pushing a luxury product to anyone, you're not talking about ROI at that point. It's a luxury product.
Right.
Your product's a luxury product.
Well, so what I would say, at the end of the day, coffee is still a commodity. Okay, and so it's as luxury as we want to make it roasted, it's still traded on an index just like oil and gas, right between those actually. So what I learned in the last 2 weeks is that I am not selling a premium product. I'm selling a premium service. And that service, what it really defines that service, is kind of like the experience you get when you're in our shop. High quality product coupled with a sense of community. And that's the differentiator. And that's only because I had a good conversation with one of these mentors in here that helped me figure that out.
So that leads to stage 2 of my eventual question,
Yeah.
right, as opposed to a statement, right?
Right.
Which is, if your coffee can't be because of the equipment and what you're doing, your loss leader, which is what you're competing against, people who flip other services as premium and coffee's their loss leader. Can you lay with all your ambition? I heard you say you're bringing bakery and other things to the table. Can you flip the paradigm, right, where you're selling what they really want, the coffee, and making it valuable or economical with other loss-leading services?
I mean, it's probably the wrong answer, but I have a problem with devaluing coffee because I think that we need to glorify the product because there's a lot of people that make pennies to produce this product that we all consume and don't value. And so I'm trying to tell that story, and so I want to raise the value of coffee. I would rather give away my baked goods than give away product.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
That's
okay,
exactly
good. So
what
I want to
I'm
make sure that's what you're saying. So,
That's exactly
however,
what I'm saying.
I also want to make baked goods and sell them for a profit too. So
Sure.
And I think that taking into consideration what people are already doing every day, Panera's a really good example. They've walk in, they buy a bucket of pastries of some sort and a box of coffee, and they're taking it somewhere. And that's a nice service. We don't charge a lot more for that, but what we get from people is that a much greater sense of like satisfaction out of that because it tastes better, it appears better, and it's a local business. It's all about our town. It's about Wichita, not some corporation that used to be called St. Louis Bread Company. If you didn't remember that, they're not from here. They're franchised, but they're not from here. So,
But to try to distribute that, your challenge is you got to teach them how to make it, or at least give them the equipment to make it.
right, and that's the coffee service teams that go out and service these. We have those already in place in a small scale because we have a small scale out of that. It's all it's scalable. And in fact, if we will strike a deal with you that already does the low quality coffee, but with a premium nice service, and they do a good job of putting it out there, then that might actually be a good alternative to be able to get our product into places for those people that want it. I've heard from my competitor, not this particular one, another one, we're not in your market, we don't get your customers. And I'm like, I beg to differ. They call us first and they find out what it costs and how hard it is to do right now, and then they become your customers. We turn people over all the time that want a product, they want yours, but they can't afford it, or it doesn't, the business model doesn't fit. So I need to fix that business model, and then work on the perception, how to sell it. And I can get there with that. It's just doesn't make sense financially. And I think it does. I mean, we're way more interested in what we do every single day. Just our sales reflect that. So I really appreciate it.